I've got my first coil. What I'm going to do now is I need to score. All right, so I'm going to try not to watch this camera because it's backwards on my computer in a way, and it really confuses me. I know I'm working on this fancy banding wheel, and I'm only doing that because of the height. You know, this is all the way down by my thighs, this table is, and so if I got to bend over the whole time, it's going to hurt. So I'm just doing this, and it will allow me to move it, but that's not necessary. You don't have to spin it on a wheel to necessarily make this pop. Okay, you can just, now what I'm using is just a piece of masonite. It was literally just laying around here. I was going to use cardboard, so I'm on the same playing field as you, but my artist in residence, one of the things I told her to do was to recycle all the cardboard, and she recycled all the cardboard, so I have none. All right, I'm gonna move that banding wheel back a little bit for a minute. So I'm gonna get my clay. The first thing we need to do to make the coil pause, we have to have a base for it to settle in. So we need a base. So I'm gonna take my block of clay, I'm gonna unwrap it, I'm gonna get it so it doesn't roll around on me. All right, and that's fresh. There's nothing that's been cut or stuck back on top of it. It's just a fresh block of clay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully, take this wire, and you don't need a lot of clay. Something that's about a couple inches by a couple inches, 2 inch by 2 inch block is plenty, because you don't need to make these huge. Now, when we make these in class traditionally, I'm going to use this table as an example. They're about this tall, which is, you know, it's hard to tell from what I'm doing. It's about 18 inches tall. So I've got a cube of clay, all right? I'll put this away for a second. Always keep your clay wrapped up. So you've got a table to work on. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start kind of squaring it up a little more, and that's just to get rid of things like this, these voids. So I don't want to trap air in them, so I'm just smashing them until they get flat. And once you get it there, it doesn't matter whether it's a cube or whether it's in the round. It doesn't matter. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it on the table, and I'm going to start using this part of my hand. Don't use this part here, the pad of your fingers, because it's going to hurt. It's going to bend backwards, and it's going to hurt. Use the butt of your hand, because that's where all the power is. And don't try and flatten this out in 4 hits. Let it take its time. And I actually work around that cube. I hit here, 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 and here. I get it a little flat. I'm trying to keep it nice and flat. So if I hold this up so you can see it, I'm trying to keep it flat. I'm going to flip it over and do it some more. And the other reason we use this part of our hand is it doesn't leave divots in it. Like if I used this, it might leave I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It leaves a little concave, and we don't want that. That's also why we flip it. All right, so I've got it about this thick. So if I put my finger beside it, you can see, you know, I want it a little bit thinner. You can continue to pad it, but if you have enough room and the object you're working on is stationary, like I wouldn't try and do this on cardboard or even newspaper, but if it's a non-sticky surface, good sealed concrete works really good, or a countertop that's like, you know, a Formica countertop. I'm gonna hold this with 2 fingers. I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna throw it like this. You don't have to try this. You can just pat it by hand. If you happen to have a rolling pin, you can use that. This is just called throwing a slab, because I'm throwing it. But you can see it's getting thinner. So that may be a bad side to show you. So if I put my hands between it, you can see it's about 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch thick. That's good. So now that we got that base made, you're going to have your device to put it on, whatever it is. Cardboard's good. And I want to cut my shape out. So if for some reason you were going with a round object, solo cup's great. You can just put it there. You can trace it. If you wanted something more square, you can do something square. That's totally up to you. I'm going to freehand it. So I'm just going to draw a kidney bean shape. I'm going to do an oval, because the oval I can teach you about shaping better. So you can make an oval. You can take a piece of paper, the old snowflake trick, draw half your oval, fold that piece of paper, well, fold the piece of paper in half, draw half an oval, and then cut it out. And then when you open it up, you've got a perfect oval. I'm not that fussy. I'm going to freehand it. So all I've done is went through with my needle tool all the way around. Now be careful because this might scratch whatever table you're working on. Here in ceramics, our tables are here for destruction. I'm going to cut this free. So I've inserted it into that cut line and I'm going to pull. That'll allow this whole slab to go away. So now I've got this slab. What I like to do is this clay's fresh. I've used no water. So I can take a sponge. I'm going to hold it flat in my hand and work this edge. I'm just going to go ahead and smooth some of these edges now. Whoops, I'm over too far. Like so. That's just to get rid of those sharps. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and put it on my board. So you don't want it to be too wet or it'll stick to it unless it's cardboard. I'm actually going to do the other side of this because it's a little drier and will release better. All right, so I don't want to damage my back, so I'm going to move this in. I wish I had a little better angle on this camera. That's okay. My slab, if you can tell, is just like a little thinner here than it is there. I'm actually going to flatten that out a little bit. All right. So now we got to do coils. And I believe I'm going to move this up here just a little bit. Maybe you'll be able to see. I'm going to work right here. I'll keep moving this back and forth. So this slab of clay that you have left, what you want to do is you want to take it and you want to fold it carefully. So I'm going to start by folding and pushing and then sliding it together. That limits the air. The other thing you can do is slam them together really hard, and that forces the air out. And then you can go back to putting it into a cube, trying to keep the air from gathering inside of it. You may have heard of wedging, and there was wedging in our book. We'll get to that once we're on campus. Nothing we've done so far requires wedging because we're going to make a coil now. And so it will wedge itself in the act of coiling. All right, so I'm going to take some of this clay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my palm like this. I'm going to smack that so the hands are perpendicular to each other. And then I'm going to roll it. So after I hit, I let it roll, and I hit it. And actually, I'm doing it quick because I actually hit and it sticks to my hand briefly, and I can do a motion that makes it spin, kind of like a football. But just know that you're rolling it as you're smacking it. That starts your coil. We don't just squeeze it, because if we squeeze it, it leaves those marks, and then those are hard to roll. That's why smacking it's better. Get down here, big rolls. So spreading your fingers out and fanning like that. Because if you just push down real hard and go quick, it'll go flat. So long rolls. And you can turn it a little bit every now and then because you might not get equal pressure because of the way it's rolling. So really slow, you can see what I'm doing. I'm starting with my fingers, pushing out and going out the coil. And then I come back the same way. So I go out, and then I put my hands in the middle and come back. Once it gets kind of long, you can take your needle tool and just cut it in half and set this one aside, and you can keep working this one. Now, if you've got a dry surface, and you can add water to it. I don't want you to ruin any of your kitchen counters or anything. I can add a little water so it doesn't dry it out. So I didn't pour water on there. It may look like it to you. I took this sponge, wrung it all the way out, and just added some moisture. You can also just barely wet your hands. So if I put them in water, I actually want to dry them. And so they're just no longer, you probably can't see it. Well, you can see a little dryness there. So they're not watery. And that all keeps that coil from breaking. If it gets too dry, it'll break. So we're going for a coil. It's about the size of your pinky, or a little, or even a little smaller, depending on your pinky. Small, petite people, pinky's good. Big, beefy people, those football players that are the front linemen that have fists like grapefruits, probably half the size of your pinky. So I got a coil. It should be flexible. It shouldn't break. You can make up a few coils ahead, but it's not good to do. In fact, this big plug that's still here, I'm actually going to put this back in my bag a little bit. Just lay it in there on top of it, and then lightly cover it, because I don't want the air getting to it. So I'm gonna take my coil, and all I'm gonna do at first is measure what I want, okay? So I'm gonna lay it on the edge, and I'm gonna act like I'm building with it. So notice I'm holding the coil up in the air. Can't see that part. And I'm gonna come around, and then I'm gonna take my needle tool, and I'm just gonna cut it off just a hair longer than I need. So here's where it's meeting up, right here. But I'm gonna come out to here. The reason being, this other end of the coil usually has a fold to it. We want to cut that off. We don't want that on there. So I'm going to take my cut end and lay it down. Come back around and measure. And what I do is I just overlap them, and then I'm going to cut right where that overlap is. All right, so now I've got my first coil. What I'm going to do now is I need to score and attach this. So remember, scoring is using your needle tool to make cross hatches. I'm going to take my finger, dip it in my water, add a little water to that end, and I'll pick this up and show you. You've seen scoring though. Find it, where is it? There it is, scored it. I'm going to do the same to this side. So I can just use one hand, so I can pinch it between my fingers. I like to have an apron because I wipe my hands off a lot. You can use your towel. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to take those scored areas, roll them together, and then twist a little bit very lightly. I don't want to squish that coil too much. And then I'm going to come in and palm it and come in and smooth all that together. So you got to do this for every coil. If not, you'll have a weak spot and it'll crack. You don't have to smooth it all the way down. You can see that's still rough, and that's okay. I'm going to put it back on my pot just to look at it. So I can pick up my needle tool again. I like to trace this, so I'm going to center this on that slab, and then I'm going to lightly lay this needle tool in there, and I'm just going to go around it. And you'll see what that did. So that shows me where my coil sits and where I need to score. So if you have a brush handy, a small brush is good. Oh, I just dropped my brush. Like this. I'm going to dunk it in the water and kind of shake some of the water out, and then go around. You should see this getting wet on even from far away. You can see how wet that is where that coil is going to go. I'm going to come along and score this. And I'm doing it just how you'll do it, because that's all you have is a needle tool. We actually have these wonderful tools here called scoring tools. Let me see if I can find one. Oh, yeah. And when you guys get here and are working, you'll have access to something like this. It's got like a bunch of little tines on it. You can just come along, and it's so much faster. Like that. I'm going to hold this coil in my hand. Same thing. Add a little water. This is not a fast process, nor should it be, because we want everything to slowly kind of be stiffening up as we're working. Because if we go too high too fast with our coils, it'll just fall over. If we use too much water, it'll fall over. So if you've noticed, so far, I've used just a little bit of water on a brush, and a little bit of water on my fingers, all I've done. That's scored enough. Look how deep those are. I'm going to lay it back on here. Doesn't matter whether I've flopped it around, because this isn't a perfect oval. It doesn't really matter. And before I do anything, I'm going to come along and I'm going to just make sure it's where I want. So I'm going to push it in a little bit. And I'm just going to inspect it. And then I can start going around and lightly pushing down with my finger. So I'm just kind of pinching and pushing down lightly. That secures it to it. I like to go around one more time and just kind of lightly push with my thumb or any finger. That'll help secure it. That's coil 1 out of probably like 40. You start your next one. So I still have this piece of coil. I'm going to take you can use your finger or a brush, just a little bit of water on the top. Score. So you don't have to completely measure this next one out if you don't want. Remember, crosshatch, so go 2 directions. What I do is I take this one. This is fresh clay that we're working with. So it sticks better than when you're putting a handle on a leather hard pot. So this is already going to have the propensity to stick. I like to have my joint be on a long side if it's oval. So I'm going to hold it and I'm going to rotate that piece. And I'm not squishing it hard. I'm just pushing down lightly so it'll stick and not fall off the side. And I'm back to where I was that first time, that first coil. I'm gonna make that cut again. It's actually better to go through the hole. I don't know if you can see that. So I went through the hole and I'm gonna come up, cut right through and hold my finger over the top. That way I'm not pushing down too hard. Same thing, add a little water to both sides, score quickly, ends, and then just wiggle that together. All right, so now we got 2 coils, and that's what I'm trying to get to, is so we can start talking about other things. I'm gonna go around and just kind of center it up. So if I feel like this needs to come in, I just push a little harder with my thumb. If I feel like something needs to come out, I just push out a little bit. Trying to get it centered over top of that coil. All right, so are there questions so far? Okay. So if we look at this, I'm gonna have this so we can look at this the long skinny side, because it'll be a good way to exemplify this. This is our wall. I'm trying to get the angle right so you can see it, right? It's vertical, straight up and down theoretically. As this comes up, if I want this to belly out and then come back in, it's all a matter of coil placement over the top of this. So I'm gonna try and get the angle right again. So if the coil is directly centered on the coil below it, it'll go straight. If it's off center a little bit, it'll start to come out. Now you can't exaggerate that too much. I'm gonna do one more coil and then I'm gonna talk about smoothing it. You'll have little bits and pieces left. What I do is I dunk them in water. Oops, I dropped it. Squeeze them together and then throw them in the bag. Because if I don't dunk them in water, they will just dry out really fast. So I'm back to coil rolling. So kind of making these W-shaped movements. And pay attention to the coil. If it's fat here, work there. If it's fat here, it's okay just to have one hand working like that. Just make sure it's all rolling really far or it'll get flat. If it does get flat, that's okay. It gets like flat spots in it, don't throw it away. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this one to the diameter I need, even though it's getting a little long. It's close though. Don't overthink that coil rolling. It's not rocket science. I'm gonna just do this way so I can see how much I need. So notice how I'm just laying it on there. I'm just gonna mark it this time. I picked up the wrong one. That's the right one. All right, so same thing. We'll come in with my finger this time in case you don't have a small brush. So I just added a little bit of water to my fingers, all I did. And I'm going around. I'm gonna switch to my cheating tool just because I can. So that makes so many more marks so much faster. I'm gonna place this one. Some people would tell you to put this together, score it, flip it over and score the bottom, but again, it's fresh clay, it's gonna stick no matter what we do. So if I set this out just a little bit past the edges, I don't know if you'll even be able to tell. See how that's just barely overhanging right here? That'll allow that to start to come out. So again, I'm gonna secure this end. So I'm just scoring these ends and putting them together. Then I come along. Now, when we start to press these coils down, as we get taller, there's a likelihood that that wall is going to collapse. So you got to really watch what's going on down here. All right, so we've got, you can see there's coils. I'm trying to get a good picture here. Coils on the inside right here. We got coils on the outside. So now what I want to do is I want to take these and smooth these out. So I'm going to try and work so you can see this. I realize that this tripod is just a little high, but it's as low as it goes. What I want to do is I want to have a hand on the inside and a finger on the outside. Okay, so I'm right-handed, so I'm going to switch. So here, my hand's on the inside supporting the wall, these fingers, and then you can use whatever fingertip you want. I like to use my pointer finger when I'm coming up and my thumb when I'm going down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take two of these coils. So I'm going to prop this up a little bit so maybe you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to take two of these coils, this coil and this coil, and I'm going to push down on that top coil. Now I got to resist on the inside with this hand or the wall will just fall over. This is just, we call this luting, L-U-T-T-I-N-G, the coils together. It does not leave a smooth surface. If you bought a full toolkit, some people teach to use the back of this knife. So here's the knife, and this thing has this little spoon shape on it. And you can put your thumb on it if you want, or your pointer finger, and you can come in and do this. It doesn't matter. I personally like the feel of my fingers because I know what I'm doing. When it's in this low state, if you kind of want to hold it, you can even tilt it this way and work on it. I just recommend kind of getting over sideways so I'm bent all the way over. You can almost see me in the webcam and looking at what I'm doing and then working my way around the pot. So the better you smooth that together, the less likely this is going to fall apart. You're hearing chimes and stuff. I left my cell phone and email open on the computer. You can, if you feel confident enough, watch how I'll go from the top all the way down, one lute, and then come back up. You just want to make sure that seam is disappearing. You do not need water for this. I want to go all the way around real quick and get one smoothing done. So comes to the overall smoothing of the pot. This is just a construction technique right now. This is not the smoothing I'm talking about. All right. You can come along with your finger, the side of your finger, and I'm going to hold the finger vertically and kind of go along and smooth it while resisting on the inside. Any way you feel comfortable working. Now my thumb's on the inside just because it's easier. Don't worry about what's happening down here. You can cut all that off later. The piece may even start to stick, and if it does, you want to take your wire tool and carefully try and cut it loose. So you can see now what it looks like. I'll rotate it. You can see a little bit of coil here, so where I didn't lute it quite good enough. So I just go back over and do it. But I'll keep rotating that so you can see. It's rough looking. That's what it should look like. So down here, I didn't get that base and coil luted together, so I'm going to go back and do it again. Just don't smear it to the board, because then that's when it will stick. And if you can grab it with all four fingers in both hands and your thumb and just lightly kind of pull and twist to get it loose. Are there questions about that so far? You do not need to smooth the inside ones. The luting, if on the outside, is fine. If you bought a toolkit, it should have come with one of these. It's called a flexible metal rib. If you do not have one, an old credit card or any stiff piece of plastic works. A plastic paper plate, well, not paper plate, but a plastic plate. What else is there? Anything that's relatively thin. So if I put this between my fingers, you can see that's like, we're talking millimeters. Anything that's thin, it doesn't have to be as flexible as this, that's smooth. Because what you do is you hold your hand on the inside and you come along and lay this close to almost flat, not perpendicular, and you just pull it along. And so I'm going to look down here, see what I'm doing. If I need the shape to come out a little bit, I just push out also. And so that's okay. I can hold the pot and push out a little bit. The small ends are hard to do. It's all right. You can wait till you're further up to do this. You can go along the side this way. You can also come up. There's no right or wrong way to smooth that. It's just whether or not it's getting smooth. Some people like to work vertically because it gives you a little bit of height gain. I like to work both directions. So I'm going to show this to you here in a minute. Remember how lumpy it was? And this is just my first initial pass while working and talking. So look how much smoother it's gotten. So there's obviously little holes, little divots. Those you can worry about or not. It leaves a little bit of interest. So that's starting, and I don't know how long we're into this. I'd say we probably started the coil pod at a little after 9. It's 9:30, so it's probably 15 minutes in. It's fairly floppy, so let's see if I can show you that. See how easy that moves? So if I go too far, too high, too fast, it'll flop over. So these are small. I didn't give you a height requirement, but you can see this thing is, 2 fingers high. What I would like to see is stuff that's about a hand high. So all the way up to my wrist. So, that's pretty high, about 9 inches. And then it's going to have shape. So this, if I went straight up, would be fine as a unique shape. Okay? We use, on pinch pots, some people altered the rims. When you get close to the last 4 or 5 coils, you can alter your rim. You can decorate these however you want. You can put handles on them, whatever you want. Are there questions about that so far? No. So when we talk about texture, let me see if I can find something to texture with. I'll walk away for a minute. We have all kinds of neat things laying around here. As soon as I say that, so these are not makeup brushes. It's a texture brush. And I'm not going to do it because, but any hard bristle brush would work for texture, but you won't see that on the camera. It doesn't have the resolution for you to, for me to show you that. If you have this is just a really cheap butter knife, but you know how knives have that serration? Especially a steak knife. It's way bigger than this. That's a really good thing to make lines, and you'll be able to see this. Now this I would probably wait until it was all the way up and finish building. So see those lines that it's created? You don't have one of these, but anything that'll do texture. This is a bunch of pointy stuff. That would work. Well, I have my texture thing over here. Absolutely. There we go. Even if you live in the city, you take a walk around, you're bound to find one of these. That is not a pig nose. Walnut, right? All right, so watch this. I'm going to support the inside, and I'm going to roll that walnut up and around, and then move it. And then move it over. So I'm really supporting that inside. And then just kind of rolling that walnut around. Look how much texture that gave it. So you can add texture or not. You can add texture and then say, well, I wanted to have some stripes of blue and the texture is too rough. You can come along with your finger and get rid of a section of it just that fast. That was like 3 swipes of my finger. So I want these to have texture if you want them to. If not, that's fine, but they do have to be smooth. So you have to use some type of flexible material to smooth them. Back of a spoon works pretty good too. Or a rubber spatula. You probably have a rubber spatula in your kitchen. Those work pretty good. They start to stick a little bit. So you might have to kind of dunk it in the water a little bit and get it a little wet. Are there any other questions? No. Do you guys all have everything you need to get working? Blaine?
Yes.
I can't hear you, buddy.
I have everything.
You do?
Yes.
All right, good. Anybody else? Jason?
Yeah, I got everything.
All right, and let's see who else is on here. I know there's a few people that we were having a hard time getting stuff. No, DeAndre's not on here. Devin, you've got everything, right? Yes. All right. All right. So I won't keep you on here, so you have to be watching a screen. I'll let you go and work, and I will be here. I won't close the session all the way down. I'll just be sitting in a chair, and I'm going to let this one stiffen up for a while, and then my afternoon class, I'm going to build on this some more. If you have a question, just pop back in, or just stay on here and work. It don't matter to me. All right. If you want to stay and work with the cameras rolling, do it. I just won't turn it off yet. I am going to turn off this camera for now. That one. That way I get a bigger screen and I can see everybody. So if you want to stay and work, that's cool. I'll stay here too. But you're also free to leave.